Welcome back. So now the President has taken the oath of office. He needs to appoint a cabinet. One of the key positions is going to be the Minister of International Cooperation. This comes at a time when South Africa has been playing quite a key role, charging Israel with genocide at the International Court of Justice. Ramaphosa has been leading the African Leaders Peace Initiative in Ukraine. Professor Chris Landsberg is the SARTI Chair of International Relations based at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Landsberg, good afternoon to you. Firstly, the ANC is still the dominant party in this new coalition. Do you think the ANC is going to set foreign policy by itself, or will it consult in some way?
No, I think that will be bad faith if it tries to set it itself. But I would also be surprised, Stephen, if foreign policy is given to any other party rather than the ANC hold on to it. There are about 4 or 5 other portfolios that I would be absolutely gobsmacked if the ANC let go of that. No, but I don't think it's about making foreign policy alone. In fact, I think that document, the much talked about statement of intent, you can almost read it in 2 fashions. There is the excellent, well-crafted first 2 sections on values, on principles and stuff, and you can see the ANC and certainly certain individuals and key actors on the ANC's hand in it. But when it comes to the modalities and the decision-making part, I think the ANC finds itself in a bit of a quandary, and that's one of the reasons why there is this attempt to get others on board. But I also think it's done for genuine reasons to try and have as much representativity as possible. No, it cannot be seen to be doing that, but whether other parties are there to literally outwit and outvote and outsmart the ANC and therefore not act with bona fides, that's an interesting question.
It's interesting. I mean, some issues are more divisive, or let me put this differently. There are more divisions over some issues than there are on others. So, for example, the DA and I presume the Patriotic Alliance and probably the Inkatha Freedom Party and absolutely the ANC will probably agree on social grants, right? But on foreign policy, there are actually really important divisions. Gaza is one of them. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is another. We forget John Steenhuisen actually went to Ukraine to see the invasion by Russia for himself. But isn't foreign policy quite a difficult thing to negotiate over? I mean, we couldn't withdraw our application, the genocide application, at the International Court of Justice now, obviously.
And let's add to that, Stephen, in all fairness to the DA, I think the ANC did start off showing greater affinity and alignment towards Moscow, but it certainly corrected that. On the other hand, the DA went to the extent of saying if a certain Vladimir Putin puts his foot on the soil of Cape Town International Airport, they would arrest him in cell. They would arrest him themselves. But where's the enthusiasm for commitment to speaking out against Benjamin Netanyahu? In fact, it's institutions of rule of law that have taken the actions, and they pride themselves on being the party of the rule of law. I just want to respond to the important point that you've made about the differences. I actually think there's also a lot in common that these parties have. So I don't think anybody, including those that have been excluded or not part of it, and I think they've been excluded by some parties deliberately, and not just the ANC. I'm not talking about the ANC, but those who now find themselves outside and formed this progressive caucus have been left outside. The land question is there. The question of redress, the word redress is there, that we have to see to the unemployed, the destitute in our society. It's there. Economic growth is there. There's agreement. The question is, the ANC believes in affirmative action, for example, on redress, and BEE, the DA believes in the so-called equal society. But let's stick to foreign policy. I think there are a few parties in that coalition, the ones that are there right now, that should disabuse themselves very, very quickly, that this country remains an extension of the Western world. This is an African country. It is in Africa. It is of Africa. And in the speech by the president today, he actually called everybody invoking the Freedom Charter, and he invoked the idea of all of us are Africans, white, black, Indian, colored, all these crude apartheid labels that just doesn't want to go away. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this country having relations with the East, including Southeast Asia, and South America. The Western world is no longer the fulcrum of South Africa's foreign policy, and the sooner they get used to it, the better. On the other hand, the DA can play a crucial role in helping to bring about a rapprochement, ending the tensions between South Africa and the Western world, because quite frankly, they can argue that it's not been the case, but for the past year, 18 months, they have been aligned to Washington. There has been all these flights to Washington. And I hope there weren't talks about regime change, because if it comes out, if it did happen, then it's only a matter before it comes out. Foreign policy shouldn't be a divisive issue, but I agree with my colleague, Professor Nzenze, and the excellent piece written by my colleague, Arakea Adebaju last week, that's exactly where some parties are stuck, this yearning for the old days of relations with the West primarily.
If you look at what's happening around the world, so there are divisions in the world, obviously, over Gaza, although I think more and more the view of the global south to support the Palestinians is gaining more currency. But last year, if you look at the division in Ukraine as well, for example, but last year we did something that I think probably no other country could have done, which is that we hosted the BRICS summit. And then a few months later, we hosted the AGOA summit with the Americans. Now, really, I mean, that's kind of, in a way, a display almost, I think, of what South Africa can sometimes do uniquely to sort of, cross these divisions. How important is the role that we're playing right now when we look at the conflicts that we see?
It is very safe to say, Stephen, that there was a time that we lost the acumen, maybe even the ability, driven sadly by divisions within the ruling party, where we lost that role to play this really sophisticated bridge building role in world affairs, a role that Turkey, for example, plays absolutely marvelously right now. So Turkey is a member of NATO, but President Erdogan would not let any member of Turkey dictate to him that he shouldn't go and talk to President Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine or the grain issue, for example. There's just an autonomy about Turkey, for example, their foreign policy. We used to have that, and we can come back to that. And what the Mandela administration, during the first post-94 government, described it as universality, a policy of universality, that we will relate to all states and all states in the world, irrespective of ideological orientation, economic status, and the like, in order to build partnerships in the world and in order to get beyond this north-south divide, amongst other things. We really did it very well during the Iraq War, during African wars. President Mbeki got it right, I think in 2011, where he asked the ICC, do you mind just putting for a while the warrant against President al-Bashir on hold while I try to bring peace in Darfur? We were able to do those kind of things. But there shouldn't be contention about the fact that we're living in a changed world, in a global world, a world infused with geopolitics, and we have a role to play. But the West is angry with South Africa. They're deeply angry with South Africa. And if we think they were angry with us over Lady R, you know, that lady that rocked up here in a ship, they're even more livid with South Africa over the ICJ. But listen, you're either into the rule of law, Western liberal orders, or you're not. You can't have it both ways. You can't pick and choose. When your friends get into trouble for genocide and mass murder, then you get angry if they are held before courts. But anybody else are just dragged to The Hague and must pay the price.
Professor Chris Landsberg, thank you. Saatchi Chair of International Relations at the University of Johannesburg. Really appreciate the time.